Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We've decided to try and paint some little pretty trees for everyone. Because we're gonna paint, like Bob Ross. Look into the distance. See the pretty little trees. See how
we better talk
how
about
they calm you.
We better talk about the most placid, boring stuff before, because I can't think of anything that we would talk about that where you wouldn't get a little bit excited to start pushing the Bob Ross off to the side and start yelling at his bad bush in the corner. Reminds me of there's a Family Guy episode where Bob Ross is painting he makes a mistake and then he's like, "Oh, we'll just cover this with a bush. It'll be our little mistake, our little secret. Don't tell anyone. I mean, anyone or I will cut you." It's basically the whole thing. And I can see us taking even Bob Ross off the rails.
Well, technically Jesus said don't cover your light with a bush. So maybe Bob Ross is from the dark side.
Don't cover your light with a bush?
Yeah. You don't hide your light. I'm gonna let it shine.
Well,
you never heard that?
No, but I thought God was a lighted fire inside of a bush. So he's saying that don't cover up God's flame with another bush?
No. Well, Bob Ross wants to because, Bob Ross is from Satan. There he goes. There's the image for the show. Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics, where
Bob
they
Ross
start the
is
show
the
off talking about Bob Ross being Satan.
I would watch that. I would watch that episode. Bob Ross when he was like, "And now, children, we must bow down before Baphomet," and just totally take it off rails and start painting black bloody smears. That would be an awesome episode. I've been reading too many of the satanic groups on Facebook where it's just you can be part of the satanic or the Church of Satan and the what was the other one? There's a Church of Satan and this
Temple
what's the one?
of Satan or something like that.
Yeah, what's the one that's really
Temple? There you go.
Satanic Temple. That's the one that's really politically active. There's a bunch of them that's yes, you want to be in our Facebook group? And I was like, yeah, why not? And there's great, because we're having a bake sale and we're going to be doing a meet and greet next week. And I'm like, this is so weird, but it's so awesome because if anybody who knew is you're meeting with the Satanic Temple, I was yeah, and we're gonna make brownies and cookies, dude. It's gonna be the evilest thing ever. I can never go do these things, but I like seeing the invitations. It makes me feel welcome.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I got invited to the group too, and I'm in the group, and I don't mind. I participate a little bit, but some of it is really hard for me because I just don't care enough about putting Satan on my shirt as much as I used to.
I know.
I like to do it to provoke people. I won't lie and won't lie. But in reality, it's kind of one of those things where it's well, I could do this. I could put my the picture on my shirt. We can display it to the world. But I already own 17 of those shirts. I don't own one that's a Satanic Temple, but I own one that is, Hail Satan. I have a sweatshirt called Satanic America, and it has a pentagram that's made out of an American flag. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, we talked about that when we did our weird random rant on music. That is just kind of it's like a back burner episode that we have for when we need a week off or something, so we can just give it to people. I think that's one of our back burner episodes. We went through our entire history of music, and you were like, "I will never get rid of my Satan
America
pentagram."
Satanic America.
It's pretty cool.
What else is really cool too, Hannah?
What is cool?
I don't know. I thought we'd start the episode off. I posted a kind of a query. And I thought before we got into anything else tonight, especially since last week was such a heavy episode. So this week I'm on a new medication, and I'm a lot more relaxed than I was. But I decided to post this poll because and I did this about 2 weeks ago, and I got quite a few responses, and I posted it in a bunch of different groups and thought that it would be a good thing to talk about. And I wanted to do this because this question's actually come up in my mind before, right? And when you look at things and you say, hey, every time you and I sit around and we go through and talk through things, a lot of times it gets too reactionary, where we now feel we're in this environment where we have to react super fast, get angry, and charge through things. And sometimes, the other person in my house, the wife, says, hey, sometimes we have to co-work together about different things, right?
Yeah.
And one of the arguments, the discussions that has kind of been had is about boycotting. Does it work? We see it a lot. We sign all these petitions. We talk about boycotting. In fairness, I've boycotted Taco Bell personally since I've been 19. Now,
okay.
We could talk about why I've done that, but I've boycotted that.
If it's quick.
I've done that before. Now the shitty thing is I can't give up my Pepsi, which is like the parent company to Taco Bell, or my Pizza Hut. My kids really like Pizza Hut. But you could take certain stances on boycotting different things, and it's a lot easier when you have more independent companies like Chick-fil-A. But a discussion came up that says, is there any better way to do something than to create like an alternative to them boycotting that will not hurt the workers as bad? So if you think about it, when you go boycotting, and I'm going to throw something like a kink in the works here in a second too, but when you go boycotting, yeah, you're hurting a major corporation, but there's people there making minimum wage, making an okay living. You're boycotting them. Now these people are going to be without jobs. These people could lose their jobs. What happens then? Will some of these organizations lash out against the minority workers first? So is there an alternative way to boycott? Now, I had somebody post the question within the first, 2 or 3 hours that said, well, hold on a second. Think about it this way. We got to talk about the type of organization we're trying to hurt. Are we trying to hurt somebody that discriminates inside of the organization, or somebody that has either bad practices or discriminates outside of the organization? So the two examples that were given, one of them was, we obviously look at Chick-fil-A and their open discrimination of gay employees. And then you can look at somebody like the owner of Jimmy John's, or even the owner of Papa John's, right? The inside of their organizations, they don't have discriminatory practices, but the owner, the guy who owns those, the name for those franchises, is it like a trophy hunter, Yeah. So
they're very conservative and support things that we don't like, blah, blah, blah. Any other political things like that too.
Yeah. So you kind of like think about it that way. It takes that question and then it dissects it even farther, because, to me, the Chick-fil-A thing is obviously a lot different than Jimmy John's is, but should we be encouraging, that type of behavior or making another person rich? I don't know. And so that's what we did. That's what I did. I posted these surveys and asked people for their honest opinions. And we won't name any person's name in any way, shape, or form. It's just going to be you and me, and we're going to discuss some of the other, the other things that came in.
Yeah, so we both had our own posts. Basically, we put on some little things that we added for our section, and so we'll give ours, and then we can just kind of hit a couple of things that we thought were good, and maybe critique on what they said.
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
All right. Well, mine was just really simple on this one. Is that I had the same Chick-fil-A issue, but this is my post verbatim. It said, "Vote with your dollars and tell people why. Don't be a dick about it though. Condescension won't help. I treat it like I do the word atheist. Just tell people and leave it at that. No message or argument. Just being cool and living open. I changed my company's big box subscription from Sam's to Costco because of their amazing employee support and aim to support American companies. I just tell people what I did and why, and I let them start the conversation before I ever explain why they should too. Also, I won't stop my family from eating Chick-fil-A. I just won't order anything. It's a small stand, and they can make their own decisions." So like that one, that last part there, I was actually, my wife wanted to go to Chick-fil-A. We went. We ordered food, and I just, nope, I'm not going to order anything. You can have something for the kid. and you can get something. I won't order. And the woman was like, she asked for the order, and I just like, nope, I don't need anything. And so like if someone asks why not, then I'll tell them why. But it's pretty much the way I try to do it, because unless it's a case where I really, really do need to tell someone, listen, what you're doing is wrong. In most cases, it's just trying to be as, I guess, non-confrontational as possible. And if it turns into a good conversation where we can talk about it, cool. But I don't know. My way is like kind of like a subversive,
You're passive.
Yeah, I really is, like, because I've been aggressively attacked before, and all it does is make me dig in more, and I just assume they do the same thing when I do it to them.
And that's kind of fair, in that aspect. You don't want to confront them at the restaurant. I get it. Some of your money still goes to them, but not your personal meal. So for me, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of on the opposite side of things, right? On one hand, I don't believe if you donate and eat there, you're giving to the corporation and to a nonprofit. While if you can afford to do that, that's great. Not everybody can do that. So for example, think about it this way. A lot of people are like, well, don't, go ahead and eat there to stop the people from not having a job, but donate the equal amount of money somewhere else. I'm not that rich, so for me, it's kind of hard to not just want to boycott it versus in helping the employees. For me, if I had to find an alternative, right? I'll be honest, I don't eat at Chick-fil-A. And if my family asks to go there, I politely decline and say, hey, either you guys can eat there without me. I will not even walk into that place. Now, I wouldn't tell my wife or my kids, you can't have that. I will never say that. For example, like I said earlier, I haven't eaten at Taco Bell since I've been 19.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But fairness, I have not eaten at Taco Bell since I was 19. Other than maybe, in fairness, maybe there was a drunken time somebody fed it to me and I didn't know what it was because I was too drunk. But outside of that, I've not eaten Taco Bell, right?
Oh, okay.
And but I don't tell my wife she can't go there. Now in fairness, I do chide my wife a little bit to say, hey, do you understand? But that's just me. And for me, the Taco Bell thing, is a little bit different, honestly, than the gay thing, right? Chick-fil-A is an absolute no-no. Now again, I won't tell my wife you can't go there. But if she eats there, it's kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit in the same booth with you. I can't even walk into that restaurant. And some of it may be because my temperament's different. Maybe because I have more of an ability to lose my temper and say things I shouldn't say, or strike up even an argument with the people in there. And some of those people probably are just trying to survive. So I found it's better for me to personally avoid and boycott that type of stuff. Again, there's that other side. I will not stop my family from going there. If they go there without me, they do that. But the bigger thing for me would be is if we want to change these things, instead of walking into an establishment and just completely boycotting it, why not walk in and offer them jobs, right? For me, that was my solution. Why not walk in and say, hey, there's a job fair. Hey, by the way, here's your local resources. You don't have to work for this organization. And then kind of...
Okay, no, I was wondering, like, you're gonna go in and offer jobs? Yeah.
So I'm just not me for my company, but just as a job fair, just say, hey, look, there's other restaurants you can work at. Here's other places hiring.
Okay.
There's an opportunity we could say, hey, maybe what if we established a Facebook or a website or a small group, and it just take Grand Rapids. We start a small Kentwood group that says, hey, here, everybody post at, this website, your jobs. Throw your links in here for a job. Give us a brief description. And you could create a community like that. Then you could take that page and put it on a piece of paper, walk into Chick-fil-A and be like, hey, here you go. There's better jobs out there. And again, I'm not saying anybody should have to do this. I'm just saying if we're looking for alternatives other than just financial boycotting, let's go out of our way to help these people. Because it's really hard. You're
talking actively becoming like an activist, like
actively aspect,
doing something. Yeah. So it's not quite protesting, but like just offering their employees, hey, if you too have an issue with this, but you just need a paycheck, here's some other options that we can help you out with or something.
Yeah. Because for me, there's not really any other option other than to boycott, right? Yeah. Other than to vote for progressives. And everybody on the show knows I'm not voting. I can't even vote middle of the road very often. So, vote progressive, You can donate to charities if you have the extra cash to help make jobs better. And you can work towards, making your personal workplace as morally upheld as possible, right? You could do those things. And then that's, like, I won't say I've started a company and I go out and I ever hand out people or offer people jobs at Chick-fil-A. In fairness, I don't go in there. And I guess I gotta correct everybody. So technically speaking, my wife does not eat at Chick-fil-A. Just before we get there and you send me a hate mail, my wife does not eat at Chick-fil-A. But
wait, I thought you
it's just
said
an
she
example.
did.
No, that was Taco Bell.
Oh,
she does eat at Taco Bell.
you were saying if they did, if your wife and kids wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that. But again, so you go.
Is she in the room like no?
No. But if you look at it, and again, like I said, you could find proactive ways to help protest without boycotting. Now in fairness, I'll be honest, I don't eat a lot of food out to eat. I just don't. If it's during the week, it's once a week. Otherwise, when we go to restaurants for work and stuff like that, I try to avoid lower end fast foodish restaurants. We pay more money, yes, but I'm able to tip and do all these other things I can't do at a fast food restaurant anyway.
Yeah, really, what it comes down to, like, if you're asking about the boycott in the fast food restaurant or the places where they hire people at minimum wage, essentially. So, like, it doesn't have to be fast food. It could be a place that hires people at minimum wage. So the people working there don't have a whole lot of option. They can't run off and go do anything. There's not a ton of jobs what do they call it? Vertical movement, so you can climb in a company or something like that. Like, it's a tough place, and so, like, the people there, a lot of times they may not be 100% in agreement with the philosophy of the owner or the philosophy of these things. They're just looking for the cash and subsistence and all that kind of stuff, because it's important. So if you look at the long game on that, like you mentioned, talking to politicians and voting progressive and stuff like that, like, that is the long game. So, like, that's the one that we always talk about. Vote for candidates who support the independent commissions for reversing gerrymandering throughout the country. Like, this is the big thing that's going to be decisions and voting is going to be done this election season in Michigan on it, which will change the way all of our district maps in the places that are very, very diverse but are uniformly and very consistently Republican, which is a direct result of gerrymandering. Those things can be changed to change whether or not it's allowable or legal for someone to discriminate based on sexuality or gender distinctions and all that. So, like, those kinds of things are the long game. And so if you feel that you can't get involved in the short game, there are people out there that do it. And as much as I would love everyone to have enough free time to be able to do that, but not everybody does. So if you want to get involved just a little bit, you can go to the long game and try to turn the government into a progressive force for good. If you can spare some time or some money for the short game, like what Chris is saying, go out and directly interact with these people, that's awesome too. But at least do the small one. At least do your civic duty and support basically everybody, as opposed to companies that do discrimination. I think boycotting is a good place to start, but you could go a little further.
Yeah. So why don't we hear from a few of the viewers and supporters what their thoughts were? So one of the first comments we got was Nico, and she said that she contributes to nonprofits like the HRC or the ACLU.
Cool.
So she goes out and she donates money to help try and equalize and balance out organizations that won't just give all their profits to churches like Chick-fil-A.
So she says that her kids love the God chicken, so she's spending some money there. So in a kind of a way to offset the money she does spend at the God chicken, she offsets it with the ACLU.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so she's one of the balancers.
Yes. Ashley said that she would find it difficult to hurt a business owner without in turn hurting the businesses. So sometimes you just have to break a few eggs. And so, again, I agree, it's kind of hard not to. Should we feel bad because these people are being disadvantaged? Again, my option is I think we should go out of our way and maybe we should look into starting that group. I don't know.
That would be pretty cool. That's a tough one because I mean you really do. It's like we were saying. It's like not everybody that's working there is there because of the philosophy of the business. Like there are people that go to Hobby Lobby and get a job there because they're like, yes, I don't want contraceptives to be mandated for all workers. Like that happens. There are people out there that do that. But other people are like, you give me a paycheck, cool. That's all I need. Like, and so like we can't. It does hurt to attack those people.
Yep. Another person, mentioned that you can put the dollars back into corporations that you support their leadership for. So instead of going out of your way and saying, hey, I'm going to put money in Chick-fil-A, you can go spend it at Wendy's or wherever, or Arby's or something like that instead.
Well, that was my example. As I said that I took my company's subscription away from Sam's Club and we put it into Costco. Costco spends way more money on increasing salary pay. All of the money given back later. This is actually relevant to later in the show. All the money given back through Costco's tax discounts, it's sent back to his employees. Like that money trickled down in Costco. Like Sam's Club is owned by the Waltons, and the Waltons are terrible when it comes to paying employees and being ethical on that. So yep. I transferred over. So if you can find a company that does a nice balance, that's awesome.
Yeah. We had another person chime in and say, hey, that they believe that boycotting is a market-based response based upon the sort of flawed idea that people vote with their dollars. This doesn't always mean boycotts aren't sometimes justified or effective, but it does often mean that people are most directly affected by something have very little power in a boycott because they don't have the dollars to vote with compared to those who buy or where the product is being bought. So they believe a better response is for the workers at each firm organization against the bosses to create strikes, work rule slowdowns, industrial sabotage, which could be effective weapons inside of the hands of the working class.
Ooh.
So they gave us a link to iww.org, but we'll post that in the description. But, in fairness to him, okay, if you're looking at it, you are somebody that works for that organization. That's what you can do. And I actually agree with that. If
I love that.
You're
I love
stuck in a position where, hey, you can't buy it. You can't go anywhere else, right? Let's say there's only 4 fast food restaurants, no manufacturing, nothing else in your town. You have to work at one of them, and nobody else is hiring but Chick-fil-A. Instead of saying, hey, I'm not going to, stop working and basically had no money, I'll work here, but I'm going to help work to create dissent among the ranks. And I think that's very effective. In my position, I have a little bit more privilege only because of, I'm more of a supervisor. But, I encourage other employees to talk to the other employees that are making, that are on the lower ranks, that are doing the actual job. And I encourage them to say, hey, if you guys feel this way, you guys need to speak up as a collective and more people will listen. And it's actually somewhat worked a little bit, in terms of more people are calling out, the sexism that some of the employees will say randomly, right? It comes up like, for example, there's a guy, and I know he'll never listen to the show, hopefully, but there's a guy that basically we'd have these meetings every week. And I used to buy lunch for the meetings from Panera Bread, typically. And we would always buy lunch because they were a 2-hour meeting. We had to have over our lunches. And there was one of the leads that joined us, and she's, a female, and she's not that old. She's in her 40s, right? And every time this guy would tell her, hey, it would be fun if you had made us all sandwiches. And she would laugh.
Oh, God damn it.
And just kind of, like she would blow it off. And I asked her one time, after a while, I said, hey, does this bother you? I was like, if you could speak up, like this, he shouldn't say these things. She's like, yeah, it's just an inside joke we have. Well, after a while, I finally just, got a little frustrated and said something and was just like, hey, look, like, seriously, dude.
How about you make some sandwiches?
Funny, man. Like, yeah, why don't you go make the sandwiches? I'll tell you what, why don't you do the ordering next time? Hey, Ruth, you don't have to order anymore. You're going to order over here. And then I told this other dude's like, well, I don't know about that. And then, we got through the things. And then afterwards, he's like, are you really going to like be an asshole and make me, order it? And I was like, well, you should. Why don't you go collect the orders and do all these things? He's like, well, that lady, she never ever did that. I said, I know, but you're calling her out for it in front of everybody else for absolutely no reason. I'm the one that's buying and taking all your orders. I'm doing all the work. If anybody, you should be telling me that. Yeah. If you want to make fun
that's-
of somebody, make fun of me is essentially what it was. And then, he doesn't, he still makes a joke once in a while, but usually now it's kind of funny because now she says something back to him. And then there's a couple other female employees that, are sitting in on some of these other meetings. And now they make fun of him too. They just openly make fun of him. Like every time he says it, they go, oh, look, there's that old sexist guy again doing it. They just openly call him out. And he doesn't know what to do.
That's got to be like your dream. So like you talk about being an anarchist socialist or whatever, like that's got to be the perfect thing for you, right? Like where it's not so much you're repressing what everybody's saying, it's just everybody can do whatever, and the women have as much power to make fun of the guy who's being a jerk as so like it's just like everything is open and clear. That sounds like a pretty I guess a good uniform situation. But what this the person said here for the industrial sabotage and everything, I love that idea that the workforce is going to kind of subvert and push back. So like the people, the masses, the proletariat are going to tell the bourgeoisie, no, it's not okay to be discriminatory against any specific group of people, Muslims, gay people, transgender, whatever weird, whatever group or thing that for some reason bugs people that are in power. Like tell them, no, it's not weird. It's fine. We're the workers. We're okay with it. You go up there and you can be the head. Otherwise, we're going to fight and pull you down or whatever. That old idea is actually being directly fought in the long game that I talked about a little while ago, the right to work states and, basically devaluing unions and people basically being told that the unions are a drag on your paycheck and they're unworthy and you shouldn't mess with that until people realize how important that is. That's a big thing. Like, unionization used to be a thing where we could all get together and say, no, man, that's not cool. And I really wish people would do that more. And I would love it to happen in the fast food industry. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Another individual, Joe, he said essentially that, he gives his money to the other companies. He says he personally does not feel that the companies he's boycotting, the workers really suffer from it unless enough people do that. He says, but the idea behind it is if other employees at other companies are getting more money and more people do that, it's going to benefit them, that company. They'll hire more laborers. Therefore, you'll pull away from, the bad company and bring them into the good company. And so that's kind of his logic behind, yes, he boycotts and he actually goes out of his way to buy, specific companies. And in his hope, if everybody does that, therefore, let's say, you'll have companies that don't donate money to the wrong parties or something like that.
Well, he uses Nestle as an example too. He doesn't like them because they use like slave labor in third world. And I basically boycott Nestle because they suck up water from Michigan and all these really weird and terrible deals throughout the country. Really taking water from the streams and lakes and everything and putting them in bottles and selling them all over the world, just redistributing water, which kills ecosystems and stuff. Like, those are big things that I do. I actually participate in that boycott. And anyone who does, if I see someone buying a Nestle thing in my family, tell me I'm comfortable with, I'm just like, no, could you just maybe buy like national brand or something that's not that company? And they're just like, well, why? And then I'll explain a little bit why, whatever. But I mean, that's an important thing. The next one on here, this guy named Rick says that boycotting a viable company because of the owners or CEO's practices doesn't hurt its industry, only that particular company. As long as the product or service is worth people's money, they'll buy it, sometimes from some other company. And that is where the jobs will be found. So quit eating Papa John's and more Mountain Mikes will open up.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to the last thing, the last guy. That actually seems to be kind of a common theme. By supporting other companies through their, capitalistic endeavors, it'll help, bring up those other companies. And I kind of agree with that because
it's like boycott light. Like
yeah,
you're kind of boycotting just by going somewhere else.
Yeah, well, look at what micro beers have done for Grand Rapids. I mean, it's not because, and people probably didn't boycott it because Busch or Pabst is shitty companies, but when Pabst outs where they make their beer and where they produce all the things and they started to delocalize and all the other things, people stop buying that stuff, right? Now, there are people that are like, yeah, I really like the cheap stuff, I don't care. But there's other people, a lot of people who are like, hey, these microbrews taste better. Oh, and by the way, hey, I'm supporting inside of my own economy. I mean, Michigan has essentially created a mini alcohol economy inside of the west side of the state for the most part. But I mean, it expands. I mean, I guess it does kind of expand through the whole state.
Boozing up in God's country over here in West Michigan.
Because it's okay to have a couple of beers every once in a while. And it's funny, there's this wine beer bar, and they serve a lot of local stuff, and they have some imports and stuff like that too. But they serve a lot of local stuff. Triple Root for anybody listening in Zealand, and you know, we go in there. You know, my buddy and I go in there, and he gets some of the local stuff, and it's kind of funny because you know you can watch these people come in, and literally, and maybe it's just the time of day we go in, but literally people don't sit there and drink 17 beers. They have one or two, maybe 3 beers, and that's it. They just it's just like that. Whereas if you go to a bar that doesn't specialize in micro beers, you're seeing people pound things away. And I don't know if it's a cost or if it's usually just because you know
when I was in college, we would go to like the like American beer bars, like dollar drafts, and you just like have these 12-ounce cups or 10-ounce cups, and there's like $1, and you just sit there and just worm your way through a $20 bill. It was miserable. It was just gross. But like it's like the same thing with Pabst. Like Pabst used to be, you know, a good Michigan beer. There's a couple other companies that used to be in Frankenmuth that were really, I think Schlitz was in that general area as well. But either way, like that. Yeah. Well, like all of the different, you know, like when you start, this is something I'll bring in a little bit later in the show too. When it comes to the taxation, it's just like once they go global, like it changed a little bit. You know, you're making that more manufactured thing, and so having that smaller, you know, more personalized product. This is something also that another reason why I like to support smaller companies is because they typically have to deal directly with the market forces. If you are a racist douchebag in a small business, you're gonna be kicked out of town, man. Like they're gonna chase you out of town if you have no brand recognition that can push you over the hump of being like, no, we don't hire gay people in this place. Your business will get shut down. Like there's no way you can survive that. Like Chick-fil-A can survive because it's a national company with tons of money, but like that small business stuff it's a wonderful thing, and I find that they have to deal with, you know, the I guess be with the times.
Yeah, that's very true. But that's kind of, you know, I mean, that's kind of one of those things too. How do we get away from it? And it seems like the consensus from the surveys is to continue to boycott. That's probably the best way to do it. You know, if you want to be more proactive, you can be more proactive. But, you know, at some point we have to either vote people out or, you know, the little amount of dollars that we spend, we have to redirect. We don't know what else to do. I don't know. Sounds like fun, Hannah. See, I didn't get angry. It was kind of funny. You thought I was gonna, you know, blow up and have a meltdown like last week, and you know, this week.
This is like boycotting some anti-gay chicken. It's a little different than children in cages.
A little bit. True. That's very true. And then, you know, the next thing that we should talk about, we should talk about E3, right? You know, because what's happened, and it's kind of funny. You know, we do all these serious topics on the show. We do all these serious things, but we never actually stop and say, hey, you know what is Chris and Chris like? You know, so why don't we spend a few minutes talking through E3? So we just got done. We got done with the survey. We should have put an E3 survey out there. That's what we should have done. We did not do that. But we don't know if anybody listening to the show likes video games that much. But I don't know. That's kind of one of the things I enjoyed a couple weeks ago, Hannah, was E3. I enjoyed.
You enjoyed it? Like you were there?
No, I was not there. I wasn't that
lucky.
Did you look up the cost to going to California, my friend? I would like to go to E3.
You actually can't get into E3 without like a pass. It's not open to the public, I thought.
No, I don't.
Like,
you have to
be part of the press.
You have to pay to get it. You can get paid to get in.
Oh, I thought it was open to press, basically industry people. I didn't think it was open to the public. I thought it was only press and like industry.
They have other people in there.
Oh, well, that's cool. But yeah, it's super expensive. That's why I was like, "What? You went? No way!"
Yeah, no. I did not actually get to go, but I did get to watch some of them. And I was watching them. It was kind of funny. We were watching a movie, and I just had them muted, and I was just watching them on my phone.
Just watching all the trailers.
Yeah, it was just like I could see the people present, and I could see the trailers come up, and it's like, oh, that looks really cool. I can't wait to like. All right, write this down. You know. But it was one of those things where, I have never gotten into the E3 thing until last year. Last year I kind of got into it.
Really?
Yeah, it was like one of those things where I just always saw it as a Disneyland type thing. And then I finally actually sat down and watched it. I was like, oh, some of these are actually really cool. But again, I like video games. I enjoy them. But at some aspects of it, I only care so much about video games. So like I have to like limit my time and my content time to what I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, I used to, like, when I was younger, like, I was big into long single player RPGs. So stuff like Skyrim now, but like my big thing was like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior. Like pretty much I like games that I could buy and just go disappear into a world and there would be nobody else but me there. Like I never played online. I never played shooters where we shot each other. Like I tried Counter-Strike and Team Fortress, the originals, not the reboots and stuff. But like I wasn't interested in playing with other people because I be at work all day or I'd be at school all day or practicing and stuff, and I just want to just relax. So I would sit back and play a game with a slow pace, a long story. And so like, but E3, I would always watch the videos, always watch the stuff as soon as I had access to it, YouTube and whatever. And like, it was a big thing, man. When E3 came around, like I remember when PlayStation had the 4 symbols up on the top for E3, and then when PS2 first came out, like that was a big deal. And I've always followed E3, even though I don't play anymore. I have not played a video game in probably close to a year now.
It's been like only 2 hours since I played a video game. You'll never guess what video game I played.
What was it?
Take a guess.
I'm gonna guess Skyrim.
Definitely not. I've beaten the game twice. I definitely didn't play that one.
Good. I didn't think you could beat. I thought it's just an open world game. I thought you just played it until you were sick of playing it.
Oh no, I've done every main mission and almost every side mission, and then hit the majority of the trophies.
Okay.
All right. So it was not that game. Though I do love Skyrim. And I went back and bought it a second time just so I could have the open world hacks. And then I kind of replayed it a second time. But
wait, so do they have like a modding community where you can do like the mods, like a PC
they added
stuff?
mods to Xbox and PlayStation.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
I have
cool.
a copy for my PS4 if you want to borrow it.
I don't have a PS4, so they ain't gonna help me.
I have a PS4 if you'd like to buy one. Anyway, but no. So tonight I was playing Chrono Trigger. Ironically enough, never played that before.
Great game! What a wonderful game.
Never
Super
played that before.
Nintendo.
But I'm in the
Love
same
it.
boat you are, though, man. Like when I watch those, I see the online things and I cringe. And maybe this is like, old man Chris and old man Chris talking here. Maybe it's like, maybe we're sitting on the porch in the rockers with our teeth in the glass, a bottle of whiskey, and a big cigar.
When I was a kid, you had to write down your save password and type it back in at the beginning of the game.
And you do have to do that.
When I played Metroid, man, back in the Super Nintendo day, back in the Nintendo days, you had to write down like a 64-digit passcode, and if you messed one of them up, ruined your life, completely destroyed it.
Did you use a pencil? Because I used a pencil so I could write on the one side, go to the next page, write on the next side, because I had to save it quite frequently because it'd be like you can only play for so long, and then I go back and erase it so I didn't have to get rid of the piece of paper.
Oh, I don't know. Paper wasn't that cheap for me, but or that extravagant. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but you know what? I know paper wasn't that bad because my father and I. This is one of the first bonding experiences my father and I ever really had. With regular Nintendo. My dad. This is gonna age us. My dad rented Metroid from Blockbuster.
Oh yeah.
And Metroid, you played and it gave you a code, and at the end of that code, when you started the game back up, you would have all of the missiles and any special perks that you had gotten, bombs, allotment, and the amount of life that you had gained. But you would start at basically 0. So when you started the game back up, you would have all the total maximum capacity of life and missiles, but you'd have to go refill all that and go kill a whole bunch of stuff and then go back to the area where you were trying to go. But there were no maps. You had to either memorize the game, or what we did, I would draw each room on a single sheet of paper and tape it there. So my father would go into a room and I would tape that. I would make a piece of paper and I would draw the shape and what was in that room and I would stick it that room onto the map. And then he would go through another door, and I would make another sheet of paper, and we would have another square. And we made a physical map of the game, the original Metroid. And we got to Mother Brain and killed Mother Brain, and my dad died on the jumping super difficult thing to try to get off the planet before the planet exploded. Spoiler alert for everybody who didn't play the game since 1986 or whenever it came out. But like, this was like this insane thing, like this super gaming moment, but it was so insanely difficult, like back to like the Contra difficulties. And so like the new games and stuff, they're really, really awesome, and I love them. But like that, there's something about the like the simplistic nature of those old games that always, brings back that nostalgia moment that you don't quite get from the new ones, where like it saves every 14 seconds, and as soon as your computer turns off, you just basically picked it up right when you were.
Yeah.
To write down like 37 words.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is, and I guess we're kind of tangenty now, but
Yeah,
I have a Raspberry Pi, right? And that's how I'm playing my Chrono Trigger. And I have these emulators, and there's this way you can like save the game, and you can just load it back up when you go back in there. And like you don't even have to worry about waiting.
State.
Yep, you just save the whole state, the image of it, and it just saves. It's like, woo, there you go. And then you're like,
did you buy the Raspberry Pi pre-built, or did you build it yourself?
I don't know what you mean by pre-built, but
so you can buy a Raspberry Pi, and basically you can load an operating system. You can make a container. You did all that. That's awesome.
So yeah, the container is super easy though. It's just like it's just a computer motherboard that you stick in a case, put the case top on it, and that's it. That's it. The harder part was partitioning the hard drive. Like I actually have 2 OSs running on mine. And I have one that loads before the other one. So I have an emulator OS. Now I didn't build it, but I downloaded it and installed it. And then I installed that over top of my Raspberry Pi Linux OS or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. That's what I used to do. I didn't do I didn't go as extravagant as going to a Raspberry Pi. I literally just, on my computer, there's a thing called Nesticle, and it was basically NES, and you would just download it. And then there was SNES, Super Nesticle, and and you could download every video game ever made for this Super Nintendo or the Nintendo, and there was like 1,000 or something like that, 750. I mean, you could just download them all and play all of them. And so like that was one of the things that I did when the global interwebs opened up so that you could play those games. And so like in that era, like I was playing those old 8-bit and 16-bit and 32-bit games that I couldn't afford when I was younger. And then when we were in the PlayStation era, the PSX era, or the Xbox and GameCube era, I was playing the old games, and I loved them. They were so much better. In some cases, some of the newer era games were really amazing, but like I loved that like single linear, very specific. And so like with the E3 thing, I used to go back into, and I would like all the RPG, the Japanese JRPG style games, so they were like very specific, very linear, very story driven. Those are my favorite. And the E3 used to come out, and they had always the best ones. And I would like the new Metal Gear would come out, and I would like follow which ones of those, because we're going to talk about that. That's one of my favorites for E3 is the new Hideo Kojima offering. So like those are my style. So like it sounds like you're kind of in the same boat. You like the games that are more story driven more than like multiplayer shoot 'em ups.
Yeah, 99% of the time, yes. Now the exception I have, let's say, is like Smash Brothers. In fairness,
like a party game. A party game is
Mario
Party multiplayer though.
Yeah. Like the new Mario Party, like if we had to take everything we're all excited about, and like I was super excited for the Fallout thing, not as much anymore, because they're trying to make it this more online thing, and I'm just again I'm not into that as much. Now it might be fun. They claim there's going to be a single player story mode, great, but
it'll be an afterthought.
That's kind of how it felt. And they had a new Doom game, and that was amazing because I love Doom, but that's a shooter game, so it's not very logically makes you think. But for whatever
story driven, but it's not
okay.
The same.
The new one was really good, but when they announced Super Smash Brothers and the new Mario Party game, and the Mario Party game's actually going back to Mario Party 8 style, where you're kind of it's more competitive. It's not this group, everybody loves each other thing. It's like, hey, I'm out for me, not you. And that
you get to punch some uncles and aunts in this one.
a little bit. You know, you never come to my house and played Mario Party. When you come, it's a serious thing, man. It's serious.
I know. I
My
remember I
kids
used to
love
play it because those games were like, it was like there were mini games and there was like Dr. Mario and like some other crazy stuff that was all mixed together.
My wife and I have
so
Dr. Mario competitions on the Raspberry Pi. I love Dr. Mario. That's like my favorite fucking old school game ever.
But that's Nintendo though. Like, so what Nintendo does is they eschew in most cases like hyper realistic graphics and, you know, system pushing limits. And what they concentrate on is making something fun for one or in most cases multiple people, because they really do like that group and social aspect to gaming. And so like that doesn't surprise me that Nintendo is like the offering for the party game, because they always have been that way. Like, I mean, that's really what they are. And then you have the other systems, the PlayStation and the Xbox, that are more like, this is for young adults and you know, what ends up turning into a bunch of people online who just love to swear and yell obscenities at you when they're losing. that's the difference between those two. I mean, that I always catch into. So it's like I love the adult nature of like PlayStation stuff, but like the online community, I never could get into it. So I like Nintendo stuff. I just never really had their gear. The GameCube was the last Nintendo thing that I bought, and I was super excited when Metroid was on GameCube because it was a shooter. That was pretty cool.
Well, what'll have to happen is you and the wife and the kids will have to come over, and I'll introduce your daughter to a Switch, and then she's going to go home.
Oh,
and
my
every
God,
day
no.
she's going to go, Switch, Daddy, Switch, give me a Switch, Daddy,
no.
come on, Daddy.
No, I got a tablet. I got a tablet that my mother broke, and I fixed it, and I'm going to give it to her like in the future, not immediately. And that's going to be our little gaming pod, and it's going to be free, and I'm not going to have to spend any money on this.
Yeah, maybe at her. I can see it at her age. I don't know though. Bring her over. I'll get her hooked on Mario games.
Well, a Switch and like thumb control and stuff, that'll be a little bit in the future. But like for right now, I think just like, you know, mash your fingers on a screen. So let's dive into like E3. What were your let's go top 3 for each of us. I think what was like your top 3, the favorite or at least most I guess anticipated games.
Number 3 for me was that Ghost of Tsushima.
Tsushima,
yeah. Because the way the graphic, it looks amazing. We'll just put it that way. They're kind of, it feels like they're going to bring back fantasy, kind of mixed with an open world style, mixed with samurais. And I haven't had that type of a game in a while. Like I like, Dynasty Warriors a lot as a kid.
Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, and Ninja Gaiden, love that. But it kind of, a lot of them just kind of got very repetitive. They weren't like the story of like Final Fantasy VII is amazing. You know, the story of Final Fantasy X, amazing. You know, and that's kind of when you look at these.
Did you ever play Tenchu?
Yes, I played Tenchu. It was weird.
That
Tenchu was the renting thing. I had to go to the store and rent from Blockbuster.
Yeah, the stealth assassin stuff.
Yeah. And I like that, you know, back in the day. And that's kind of, so I'm hoping this game for me almost kind of feels like it's going to go both ways. And to me, it kind of it's a Sony exclusive for it. So it kind of fits my, I'm a Sony guy. So there's that. But just the way that they're creating the story, I feel is going to be beneficial because they're going to mix an RPG with a samurai side of things and have a better storyline. And I like that. The next one for me, and this one's kind of like a personal one, more or less, The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
And that's one of those where we talk about, my son got this game.
Don't blow the ending of the
I won't
first
say
one.
anything about the game. All I could tell you is that the game style is realistic to the aspect that if you were in an apocalyptic world or you're in a wilderness with a lot of less people and all civilization has collapsed and it's just small little communities trying to work together, right?
Yeah.
When you get to that point, this game is realistic in the aspect of you only get so many weapons you're allowed to carry. You only get so much ammo. And it's just that realistic side to the game that I loved. And then you paired that with a storyline It was phenomenal. Just a
Naughty Dog-
phenomenal storyline.
Naughty Dog has always had amazing storylines. Everything they've ever done, like Naughty Dog is legitimately reliable for a grazing story. Like those guys they just do good work.
Yeah. And so, the original one was Joel and Ellie. And, they were an off team, basically like a teenager with an older guy. And no, there's nothing weird sexual in it, but they went through all these different areas, and it's not open world, so there's not much you can do as much as you can to improve your character, but it's not an open world.
Yeah, it's linear. But
the storyline is so driven with the actual compelling characters. It's like playing a more aggressive style interactive movie. So it's not like, there's a new game out called Detroit, and that's solely interactive. You can walk around, but you're it's not shoot 'em up. You don't have to fight or anything. This one mixes that element with that. And to me, all I can say is like I'm super excited for the new storyline, because they're going to actually focus more on Ellie this time and develop her story. And it kind of reminds me of, like, again, reading a book, a visual book. That's how I feel.
The Last of Us was a pretty violent game, like, because you were attacking like these weird mushroom head guys, and so like it was a pretty violent, like it was an adult game, so like there was a lot of mature content in the game itself. It was definitely satisfying for an adult person to play the game that was meant for adults. Like that's one of the areas on that one. So like it was a great game for people who, mature games, because as much as I love like like party games or whatever, like it's really nice to have someone tickle like the full on adult fantasy world if you want to live in like a post-apocalyptic and not actually be in it. Like that is probably the top game. I've never seen a game better encompass what it looked like than that one. So what's the number one, man? Which one are you going with?
I have a tie, actually.
Oh man.
And I have a tie on both sides, and I have to say why. On the one side it's Fallout 76.
Yeah.
And the reason why that doesn't encompass and make the top spot over absolutely everything is because the other one that I would pick is Mario Party, the new Mario Party, Super Mario Party, right? And
really,
and I'm going to say this because there's two reasons, right? If it comes to development of gameplay, intriguing stories, Fallout has my attention hands down. And I played Fallout 3 when it came out. That was my introduction to the series. I was late to the party, but I played it before Fallout New Vegas came out. Then Fallout New Vegas came out, and the huge mixture of open world with storylines and all the side stories were that intriguing that when Fallout 4 came out, everything just fell into place for me, right? So to me, Fallout 76, if they do it like they do New Vegas, it'll succeed, even if it's an online game. But because it's an online game, in some aspects, I retract the number one spot, and it ties with Mario Party. Because Mario Party, for me, is the ultimate. It's an ultimate game, right?
Pure nostalgia trip there, too.
It's pure nostalgia. I can play it with all ages. I can play it with my family. In the long run, for me, especially nowadays, when time becomes precious, is like I enjoy, like the Chrono Trigger. I've spent an hour 3 nights a week playing that game. Sometimes a couple hours if my wife works longer. But I don't get a lot of time to play that, right? Well, if she's not home, I can play video games or watch TV. And so, so anyway, so I have that. And that's kind of, for me, the Mario Party thing is that, we can come together as a family. We can enjoy the competition. My daughter gets a little bit Chris-like in her temperament of not winning. But, it's still fun as a family, and it's kind of a bonding experience. And so, like, Mario Party in our household, even over Mario Kart, Mario Party is a staple, like hands down staple of our family. Without Mario Party, our family would be like, we don't know how to play games together. That was our level of intrigue together.
We always used to do it had to be like a poker game. Like whoever the dealer was would choose the game. So like we had to rotate whose turn it was to pick the game in Mario Party. Because otherwise it would be like the same couple of games that everybody was kind of sort of good at. But like some people were like, I like that one weird one over there. And I'd be like, Mah! And then when we're done playing it, everybody have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So those are my picks. I mean, I can't put Mario Party at the top in the aspect of selfishness, but you know, in terms of my family, that's that's hands down over trumps everything. And like, if we had to take a world, right, and they're like, you could have Mario Party or Fallout, I would have to choose Mario Party, because I think even when my kids get older, they'll come back and they'll play Mario Party with me.
I think so too. Okay, so mine are really straightforward. There's very little like, I mean, it's just me here. I'm bringing in the family because my wife does not play games at all. I've never seen her touch anything associated with video games besides I don't know, some Candy Crush or something. And my daughter, she's too little. So for me, this is just pure dude. And I'm just right out of the gate. The Last of Us Part 2 is, I definitely agree with you. That's going to be a top 3 for me. That's going to be the third one though. Mostly because of its mainstream nature. Like, that game will be amazing. It will be perfect in almost every way because Naughty Dog doesn't mess up. The animation and everything reminds me of like a non-fantastical God of War. All of the God of War games were amazing, but like when you're playing it, you're interacting with it and pushing the buttons, and the dude is doing amazing things. Last of Us is kind of the same way. Like, you're pushing buttons and watching, you're interacting and telling the person, the avatar, to move and do things. But the fluid animations and the way that it just turns into this, like, it looks like a movie cutscene in most of the high action scenes. It's unbelievable. And then in the new trailer for the new gameplay, it really is above and beyond anything that anyone is offering as far as realistic and naturalistic motion capture. It's just unbelievable. And then for my second pick, it's the one I mentioned earlier, Hideo Kojima's offering. It's Death Stranding. It's just kind of like Hideo Kojima took mushrooms and made a game. This thing is insane and beautiful, and I don't know how it'll work, but I guarantee you it will. Hideo doesn't mess around, and his super long and intense cutscenes and storytelling are world renowned. And in this one, you're a message person in like this weird dystopian future that basically everything is completely shrouded in mystery. I mean, brings back Metal Gear Solid 2, where you thought you were going to be the main character Snake and it was going to be amazing, and then you get to be this other guy 80% of the movie. Like, Hideo does, you know, switches and surprises and stuff. I guarantee you that one will be stunning. And then on top of that, the final one is, I have to go with it. It's Cyberpunk 2077. I don't typically like open world games, and I never played any of the Witcher series, but watching gameplay from The Witcher and watching the people that are in charge of that series, and watching the gameplay and watching the trailer for that game is the closest thing to probably my most endeared IP, intellectual property of all time, Blade Runner. That is the closest thing I've ever seen to me actually being able to be in Blade Runner or something that futuristic and cyberpunk. I have to give that my top rating. I sincerely hope that I have a PS4 and can play that game, and it's some kind of totality. One of my issues with open world games is that I can't not do all the things, and so it turns into kind of this like life consuming endeavor. And so I like the linear stuff because there's only so many things I can do, but that game looks utterly amazing. And like, I just imagine being able to curl up on a futon or a couch in the basement and hide from the world and just play that for obscene amounts of time like I used to, even though that world doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and I would agree with that one. You know, I was very intrigued by that one, and I do think that will be probably something that I'm hoping they issue a demo for, and I'll get to try, you know, before I buy it per se.
It looks like the perfect version of Deus Ex. Like, not so much like the body modifications and stuff, but like the perfect dystopian cyberpunk future where like Los Angeles is insane, but like I don't know if they'll go like digital or if it'll go analog, because like the Blade Runner future was an analog future, like the digital revolution never happened, so everything was chip driven, board driven and stuff. And it's like I don't know what the cyberpunk future is going to be like, but like it sounds pretty cool.
I would agree with that. But that's the unique thing, right, about E3 is that we're able to. Everybody has their own desires, their own likes, and I think everybody can get something different out of it. So,
Yeah, you remember what was the Japanese game where they rolled the
Pokemon.
no is Takamari Damacy or something like that. It was basically like this weird game where you rolled a thing and you had to roll trees and roll like cars and buildings into a ball. And then once the ball got big enough, it turned into a star. And everybody's like, "This is insane!" And it like won all the things. And people were like, "There's no way this is going to be amazing." And it was like a huge innovation and surprise. I think that innovation comes from Nintendo more so than any other brand. And so like I really do think that your picks are going to be much more innovative and probably influential in the future. The ones I picked are very safe, but I mean it's always really fun, and I just wish I had more time to play around with stuff like that because it is an environment and a world that I do miss.
And just wait. Very shortly here, your daughter will probably get into them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Over to my house and make sure she gets into them. You don't have to worry about that. Your wife will be like, "No, don't do that," and I'll be like, "I'm sorry."
We'll mainline that stuff directly into your eyeballs. No, I mean, if she loves it, awesome. If she doesn't, like, I mean, that's fine too. Hopefully, whatever she's really interested in, the other one, because I have two of these things now, she'll be interested in something a little more towards mine or whatever. But even if it comes down to it, like, there's so much stuff out there that's really interesting that losing video games, it's not the end of the world. But I mean, I definitely will. I will, like I am now. I don't play anymore, but I keep up with them. I'll probably continue to do that in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've had a very lighthearted episode, but we have one more thing we should probably talk about tonight. And it's kind of funny because we got the good thing out of the way. We talked about E3. We talked about the survey we had.
Boycotting.
But Hannah, you really wanted to talk about trade wars, and it's kind of funny. You came up with this topic 2 weeks ago, right? And then 2 weeks ago, we're like, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this, and then we're like, okay, well, hold off. I don't know. Let's let things settle down. We have all these other hot button Trump topics, and then here this comes out, and then it's kind of funny as we're recording this today.
Yeah,
Harley Davidson announces they're moving production over to Europe, and what does Trump do? He threatens them.
Yeah.
So trade war is the even more relevant topic than we could have imagined.
Yeah, I couldn't have predicted that these kinds of things would happen. Like, this is like, when you think of Americana, you think of Harley Davidson motorcycles as one of the iconic American brands. If you see it anywhere in the world, you think big American noisy things. That's just pretty much how I imagine, like, anybody looking at a Harley Davidson thinking, yeah, it's a loud American thing right there. Like, that's pretty much what but like my whole incentive for this topic was basically that the tax breaks that were given, the tax bill itself was much a tax break for just about everyone, the richest people more so, but it was a tax break for everyone, defunding the government, assuming that the government would have, or the United States itself would have a 3% growth minimum, and then also using that same 3% growth to pay off some other debts as well. So they kind of double dipped on their accounting. And so we're worried about whether or not the tax bill can be paid for. And the trade war is kind of this new wrinkle thrown into the mix. So like the tax bill, the tax plan was touted as something that would save a whole bunch of money, increase the economy, and do all kinds of really great things. But that was only if the economy grew, and trade wars don't fit into economy growth. And so that's one of the things that, like, I was like, okay, well, where are we at? What is the whole point of all of the tax bill stuff and what's going on now? And we're worried I was worried that the growth wouldn't be as high as it is. And the last quarter, it was only like 2.6%, 2.5%, and it had been around 2%. It's been increasing. There's been a few reasons for that increase in GDP or whatever, but overall, it hasn't been this insane growth period that we're looking at. And we're looking at, a trade war now that could potentially pull this back. So I guess my initial thoughts were that this tax plan, we had talked about this in the past, was that it's just we're cutting too much from the government and we can't fund anything. And I'm worried about the basically all of these. If let's say you and I, Chris, were wrong that the tax plan was a net negative, was a net loss for our economy, and it wasn't going to boost the economy enough to pay for itself, that let's say we were wrong and it actually would do that, these trade wars are going to slow that down and possibly erase that gain. So that's kind of where I wanted to start with this conversation. And I just looked for some stuff. And so, I mean, I put together a couple of links. And you remember Gary Cohn at all from the administration?
I do, ironically enough.
He pretty much raid quit. Like
Yeah.
he's just like, I quit. This is insane. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's kind of how it was. Like he's kind of like the quintessential conservative, traditional Republican on the beat.
Yeah, he exactly. And the funny thing is now what is he pushing back on? Trade tariffs. The whole Trump thing. Like all of a sudden, hey, where were you, like 10, 20 years ago, man? Like where did you go? Why did you just reappear now?
Well, trade tariffs, I mean, in all reality, trade tariffs and all these barriers to free and open markets are not the standard GOP agenda. Like they would be something that would be much, much more towards the centrist Democratic wing, which is basically trying to over-regulate and control how economies interact with each other. Like the GOP loves to say they're open market, open this, open that, but we have a case right now where a lot of people are supporting this, but it's not hyper specific. So they would support tariffs on just the Chinese because the Chinese have been, manipulating things, and we talked a little bit about what the U.S. was suspecting them from. But in building the entire tax plan, Gary Cohn served as Trump's director of National Economic Council, but left after a rift over the president's trade policy. Said that these retaliatory tariffs between countries could drive up inflation and prompt American consumers to take on more debt, possibly pushing the country into another economic downturn. He said specifically, if you end up with a tariff battle, you will end up with price inflation, and you can end up with consumer debt. Now, these are things that economists talk about, and not a lot of people on the average beat know, how the GDP growth and consumer debt and tariffs directly affect the consumer. And so, like, he doesn't have a real good, audience for a lot of these things that he's saying. But in what we know through history, like this is like the skeptical scientific approach, is that just looking at what has happened in the past, when we and the rest of the world increased tariffs and started these economic battles, instead of creating these coalitions, like the TPP was a coalition that was basically not supported by a lot of progressives, but those kinds of coalitions like NAFTA, which were a relative success but needed to be updated, instead of turning into trade tariffs and using the strong-armed approach to try to manipulate and modify them to make them better, that would benefit our economy. But what these tariffs do is directly attack your friends. And now you mentioned with Harley Davidson, we're seeing that now directly coming back home.
Exactly, and that's kind of the funny thing here, right? Is that we have this trade war that's starting, and we did an episode, I don't know, it was like a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, where we talked a little bit about this, right? We talked about the fact that here we have all these trade wars going on, and guess what? We want to ban this coming in from China, but guess how it affects American retailers? Guess how it affects American businesses? And we talked about the solar industry. That was the big one.
Yeah, in India.
Exactly. And that was the big thing here is we talked about that. We said, essentially we have tariffs and all these other things, but do you understand how it affects down the line? Let's stop focusing on just production for a second and look at down the line. And that's what these tariffs are doing. And it's kind of fun. It's funny to see, and some of you almost should feel a little caution because here's Cohen saying, "Hey, we shouldn't do this," and you're like, "Hold on, man, hold on.
Yeah.
You were part of the large Goldman Sachs Corporation that screwed America at least twice now since I've been alive."
Yeah.
And so, hold on, before I trust what you're saying, let's talk through it, because I hate like saying, "Hey, I'm not going to trust somebody just because of their past," but at the same time, I'm going to definitely be very skeptical of what they're saying. And, you know, there's a couple of different articles that you posted in here. And they talk about, one of them says, "Hey, consumers and our industry workers and their families will ultimately pay the price for these punitive actions. We do not want tariffs to offset the tremendous benefits that the President Trump's tax and regulatory reforms brought to our industry."
Will bring. That's the thing. Like that, it is all prospective. So it's whether or not any of the benefits that they think that the tax plan will bring, whether or not the tariffs will offset it and remove those. That's the big issue. So like, we keep hearing that this economy is going to grow like gangbusters from this tax plan, and we've seen growth. We've seen steady, consistent growth. And during the tax plan, while it's been instituted, yes, we have seen economic growth, and that's not a surprise. When you reduce taxation on large corporations, we're going to see increases in investment and stuff like that. But the issue is that investment, the return on that investment, doesn't go to the workers at the bottom. It goes to the people who are shareholders, dividend recipients, and owners of these corporations. And so, but the other thing is that all that increase was overstated in its expectations. Then I will say it's overstated in its expectations for what it would do. But what Gary Cohn is saying is like he kind of supported the tax plan. That was a big thing that he wanted to push. And then as soon as he finished it, he said, "Great, we're going to see some growth." And then Trump starts talking about these massive tariffs. Those are going to offset that growth. And so what they're talking about on this is that this is the steel tariffs is what started this whole thing. Steel and aluminum tariffs. Steel at 25% and aluminum at 15%, or was it vice versa? Either way, what we're looking at is a direct attack to mostly Canada and Mexico in the North American Free Trade Agreement, but we're using China as a main justification for attacking and creating tariffs on these things. But we're going to put these same tariffs on European goods and Asian goods because the South Koreans are a major supporter of ours, and we're still going to put tariffs on their stuff. Like what that does is essentially create the entire world has to pay more to bring money in. And so this is where it brings Harley Davidson in. So what you said earlier is they're going to create, they're going to outsource some manufacturing to Europe. Kind of what they're doing is in order to skip the tariffs on the steel and aluminum imports from wherever the U.S. would get it, to build it in Minnesota or build it wherever the Harley Davidson has plants in the United States. What they're doing is Harley Davidson is going to take all the motorcycles that it builds in the U.S., it's going to put a plant in Europe or in Taiwan that could serve its Asian markets. It'll put a plant there, and so the steel would go from the supplier to that plant, the supplier to the European plant, and it doesn't come into the U.S., which means it's not subject to that 25%, 15% tariff. And so before, Harley Davidson built all of its motorcycles in the United States, and then it would deal with whatever exporting tariffs and whatever exporting costs and send those motorcycles to the other locations. Now they're saying, listen, we can't overcome the U.S. tariffs that we've created on the steel, the main supplier material for our machines, that we now will outsource. They're not going to lose too many American jobs in the U.S., but there's going to be some losses because they're going to have to, whoever made the bikes in the U.S., they're going to lose their jobs, and which isn't the majority of their market, but it's a big chunk. They're going to probably lose their jobs, and because Harley Davidson has been losing, I think they lost 14% of their overall sales value for the whole last year. Now the plants in in Europe and Asia are going to pick up that slack and sell directly to those consumers, which are growing markets. So this is a net loss for America. And this is a major Americana company deciding that, you know what, these tariffs are going to force us to outsource and go to that global market. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it almost feels like Trump's doing the exact opposite of what he told us he was going to do.
He's driving American companies away from the U.S. Yes, and that's the problem with isolationism and xenophobia. It really is. And the question is whether or not other companies will do this now to try to avoid these tariffs. It's like when you keep your money offshore to avoid taxes in the United States. Well, now they do the same thing with the manufacturing to avoid the tariffs on the materials.
Exactly. And I worked for a company that did this and essentially eliminated a lot of U.S. jobs. And it's kind of funny because the plants I'm in is growing a little bit and they're adding chair lines back. And the rumor has it is all these things are going to come back from Mexico. And I asked the question, well, why do you think that? And a lot of people are like, well, look what Trump's doing. Therefore, so they're making predictions on what the company I work for is going to do based on Trump. And I just said, you understand that our company could just be expanding that much. Do you understand we've gone up 10% in sales? Well, yeah, but we're losing sales over here. But overall, our sales have gone up 10%.
Yeah, net. That's the fun thing. Use the word net, and then they have no place to go.
And I don't agree with outsourcing jobs in any way, shape, or form. I really don't. But at the same time, I don't feel that strong hand is going to be what's going to allow us to do that. I think that we should stop trying to lead the UN and stop trying to lead the Human Rights Council, for Christ's sake, and actually participate in fixing the world issues where employees in other countries are treated like crap. But you can't do that by being opposed to the UN Council. You have to find a way to help influence that and change what the other parts of the economy are doing. And the problem is that's like saying, hey, America's the top set of the economy now. Like, we are not the top economy. We do not have the top world. We are not like the best place to live in the whole wide world. Hell, some people want to leave here and go to the moon, for Christ's sake. Except for now. Well, now, Trump wants Space Force, so that's probably going to be impossible because he's going to come to the moon and be like, yup, I was the first one on the moon. And we're like, no, you were not. And he's like, no. Hold on a second.
The Chinese were on the moon the other day.
No, he's going to be like, no, it was me. And then we'll be like, well,
it's fake news. It's fake news. CNN's fake news.
We have Neil Armstrong. That's all fake. That's fake news. That's a fake video, man.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about. That's what it feels like. That's where we feel like. Man. Oh.
Well, basically, when it comes down to the tax thing, it's just Gary Cohn says the possible for the trade war and the tariffs that will offset each other for the economic benefits of the tax plan. So where does that leave the significant increases in spending, wealth transfer to the top in tax breaks? So basically, we talked about this, is that the majority of the tax breaks are going to major corporations and to the wealthiest people in this country. So that money has been cut from the budget. That money's not going into the government. And we said that the economy is going to grow so fast that it'll fill that hole. And then the average people, you'll get a little bit. They said that you could double your tax return instead of $12,000. You'll get $24,000 next year, and we'll see how much of a turn it is. But once again, those are all expenses for the government. If you're not paying more in, the government is spending more out, and it'll have less money. So what happens when you have to pay for these debts? You have to pay for all of these budget increases that we're talking about for the military, and so if the economic growth that says that it could pay for all this doesn't come, then the middle class will get stuck with the bill. And just like everyone else has been saying in the progressives in the middle, that this is going to cut the middle class even harder, and it'll push us even further into the lower class. And what that does is that creates a bigger and further gap in between the top and the nearest what would be considered the middle class in that future. And that's the worry that we have to talk about, because in the end, if these tax breaks don't cover, or if the economic growth and all of these tax breaks don't cover all of the tariff negatives, then what we're going to be looking at is basically a net deficit for our entire budget every year until we do something else. And so the only thing you can do is cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all of the the things that the Republicans can't wait to cut. And if they start putting up massive debts, they'll be justified in doing that. And it's not going to be a place where they're going to want to cut. So one of the only other thing I want to talk about, Chris, did you look at your tax bracket? How much more money you get in your paycheck, like percentage wise at all? How much of an increase did you notice at all as far as percentage wise? Or I guess if you wanted to give out you didn't have an increase in yours at all? That's it.
Why is that funny? I don't understand what you're getting at. I didn't have a tax increase, man. I got nothing back this year, any more than I would have ever gotten back.
All right. So my tax bracket for 2017 was they say from your taxable income bracket from 37,000 to 91,000 is 25%. So your tax owed, you would owe $5,226.25 plus 25% of the excesses over $37,950. Whatever that number is, that is the old number. That was 2017. And so with the new Trump bracket, what that's going to be doing is that's going to be reducing that number down to, for me, it's from 25%. And for you, I'm assuming, is also my household, it's down to 22%. So we're going to be seeing a 3% decrease in that. And I don't know, a 3% decrease on that is going to be, you got
to remember the difference is you're technically married. I am not. So
I know that. But either way,
that's the problem I have is I don't have that same exemption side of things that you get.
Okay.
And so my tax bracket moved because of the position increase.
Well, it says for single filers for 25% at 37,000 to 91,000, and then that's 2017. And for 2018, it says that for 37,000 to 82,000 is 22%. So you should technically see a 3% decrease in next year's taxes based on the new tax plan. And for the married tax plan, my income for 2017 was 15%, and next year it'll drop down to 12%. But my question is basically what I wanted to bring up to that with this tax plan is this is the cash back that the middle class is getting, right? I'm looking at roughly 3%, and that's pretty consistent, 3 to 4% back between brackets. Now, how much increase are we looking at in healthcare? 20, 30%? Michigan says 22% for this year. How much increase are we talking about for all of the metal and steel users who buy things, cars, whatever, that they use these materials that are being that have tariffs being placed upon them? There's an increase into everything you buy. It can increase the cost of your cell phones, the aluminum and everything that's in there. Like basically what I'm saying is that a 3% income reduction tax rate is going to be completely obliterated immediately through all of the excess increases in costs from all of these economic changes that are going to be happening. And so with the GDP, will your income growth beat out all of the costs of living that are going to be increased? And I think, well as Gary Cohn think, it's not going to be. It's not going to inflate your value. If anything, in a lot of places, you're going to spend more money now instead of get more money back at the end of the year.
Yeah. And that's kind of that's the funny thing here. I guess it's not funny, but that's the thing here is that we talk about, tax reform, right? We talk about the message. We talk about the election. We could talk about all those different things. And you're right. A lot of people like Cohen are now all of a sudden saying, hold on a second. Let's relook at this. It's like the Republican Party is eating itself and turning itself into something else. And it's
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, chasing down the monster.
Yes. I mean, you got to think a lot of GOP members were on that verge where they're like, well, we really don't like Trump, but he's an outsider. And it's that outsider message that rang true with voters last 2 years.
The populist message. And we stuck an establishment Democrat against the populist. But to be honest with you, the establishment Democrats still had more votes. It's just gerrymandering that pissed all over everything.
And that's true. And the problem is so Trump's new tax reform thing, what he's trying to do, where he's trying to go with this, what he wants to do is just, it's off message for a lot of GOP members. And a lot of people are all of a sudden saying, hey, hold on a second.
Yeah, they're worried.
You sound like a neocon. You're filtering towards this weird middle with a flint or a brief supplement of libertarianism built into your core. And that's weird. And in fairness, that's out of Trump's character. I mean, that's out of the administration's character. This is not something we genuinely were seeing before. And a lot
he's
of
always been very closed market. Like he's always talked about like all the comics where it was like China. Like anytime he's ever been in politics, it's always been like railing against like the enemy outside the borders, close the markets. You know, that isolationist thing. Like, he's always been that way. And I don't think people thought he would go as far as he has.
No, and I agree with you. And that's kind of, you know, Politico said this. They said the secret sauce that elected Trump wasn't churning out every possible conservative voter. It was churning out independent voters who previously ran away from the Republican Party after things like NAFTA and the Iraq War. And now, look, they're highlighting trade issues and being tough on China. And they think that they believe this is what's going to motivate voters. But what they don't understand here is that it's not motivating voters any longer. It's the idea, the illusion. And then once you start putting it in place and you start seeing companies leave, you start seeing people saying, hey, we're no longer part of this anymore. We're taking a stand. You see people saying, hey, you don't want to allow gay bakers, or bakers to deny, you want to allow bakers to deny gay people? Good for you. Guess what? We're going to start taking our business elsewhere. You want to tax us heavier for this type of thing? We're going to take our business elsewhere. And that's the thing here. Folks, people are finally understanding and seeing the point where this outsider candidate, yes, super popular, was elected, but his ideas are just so untested and volatile in our current market. They affect more things than they create positive reactions.
Well, that, and I mean, in the long run, what are we looking at? We're looking at uncertainty. I mean, it really is dangerous economic uncertainty, and we're all going to reap those benefits because we're starting to feel them now.
Exactly. So as we close this episode out, I always say, hey, how can you change the world? Go to the elections here, folks. Go to the elections. Vote progressive. Help remove the Republican and GOP and libel Trump. I don't even know what to say it. The Trump gibberish out of office. Words are good. Thank you all so much for joining us on Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week with another amazing and heartfelt episode. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com